right, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the Sports Card Therapist, where I give you a behind the scenes look at my hobby hustle and sprinkling some self care and wellness on top of that. I'm Rob Gerard, your Sports Card Therapist. And whether if you're listening to me on iTunes, Spotify, or watching on YouTube, welcome to the podcast. Don't forget, you can always hit me up on Instagram at Sports Card Therapist and on Twitter, which I'm getting more active on, at card_therapist. Also, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, whether if you're watching on YouTube or listening on your podcast platform of choice. Man, I am excited to be here. Here we go. Episode 97. I cannot believe it. Episode 97. It feels good. It feels very good, actually, to really be here, really doing this. And this episode is titled The Evolution of a PC. But before we get into that, I just have some announcements I want to make. So in the next month or so, I'm going to be extremely busy. I mean, let's face it, NFL season starting off, right? So that just goes without saying. That already is that goes without saying. I don't really talk too much about it, but I'm a massive Yankees fan. I never miss a game. I watch every single Yankees game, and we've been in the middle of a huge slump after starting out being the hottest team in baseball. So I've been following that very closely. But I have some shows I am going to be at, man, and I cannot wait for it. I am super excited about it. So the East Coast National in Suffern, New York. It is a 3-day show, August 26th, 27th, and 28th. It's over 500 tables. It's the second biggest show, only behind National. So that's going to be huge. The autograph guests are insane. All you have to do is Google East Coast National, New York State, and it'll pop right up. So the amount of autograph signers that are going to be there, it's going to be nuts. There's going to be over 500 dealers there. So it's going to be huge. The place is massive. I mean, you need basically probably more than a day to see every table if you want to go. So I'm going to be there, but I'm only going to be there on Saturday. So, people are hitting me up asking me when I'm going to be there, if I'm going to be there. I'm only going to be there on Saturday, but it's definitely going to be a great show. Then I am super excited to announce that in Springfield, the New England Card Show, that's August 1st and 2nd. And I'm only going to be there Saturday, August 1st, but I'm going to be set up. I should be front and center October 1st. So October 1st and 2nd. And then that same night, I am emceeing this panel, okay, at the Basketball Hall of Fame. I am emceeing this event. There's going to be Tyler Santiago from Santiago Sports. There's going to be Jake Roy from 90s B-Ball Cards. We're going to have just a lot of people talking about the hobby. We're going to be on the main stage at the Hall of Fame where all the Hall of Fame inductees take place. So definitely, if you are in the area, it would absolutely be worth it to come to the show October 1st. And then after that, head right over to the Basketball Hall of Fame and stay there for trade night and for hobby talk. It's going to be incredible. It's got some huge hobby insiders that are going to be there, so that should be a good time. Then last but certainly not least is the Long Island National, which is Hofstra, the big Hofstra show, October 15th and 16th. I am likely only going to be there Saturday, October 15th, but my guy Ken, as usual, Sports Card Lessons podcast, he'll be holding it down for both days there. So, and I also want to give a huge shout out to John from Behind the Diamond out in Long Island, just doing it big, man, putting on shows, really helping get me in the mix and meet people and just kind of set me up for success. And I hope to do the same for him. Definitely going to be having him on the podcast in the next few weeks. So, John, if you're listening, man, shout out to you. Much respect. Salute to you, my friend. Doing big things, I see. So, yeah, guys, now that I kind of got all that stuff out of the way, I usually don't make a ton of announcements, but when I do, I've probably been like hoarding these announcements forever. So, it's just things that I want to make sure to put out there. But yeah, today, episode 97, the evolution of a PC, the evolution of a personal collection. The reason why I'm calling the episode that is because I believe I am not in the minority when I say that my tastes are always changing, and who and what I'm collecting continues to evolve and change. And like I've always said, if it don't apply, let it fly. So if you don't feel like this statement applies to you, Don't let it fly. If your PC isn't changing and hasn't changed from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, fine. Maybe this doesn't apply to you, but I know it applies to me. And, I don't believe there's any absolutes out there in this world. However, I think 99% of the card community can likely relate to the fact that we are collecting things today that a few years ago we were not. And that doesn't mean that the foundation of our collection hasn't remained the same. Like if you're a LeBron James collector, chances are you were 5 years ago, and chances are you are today. However, I'm talking about our collection as a whole, our PC as a whole. I'm talking about those side pieces. That's what I'm talking about. Those small projects that we take on, whether if it's set building or it's collecting a rainbow. I feel like our tastes are always evolving. So this topic, like many before this, actually sprung from a DM that I got on Instagram earlier this week. And I want to give a big shout out to Sam Bartolo. And on IG, he's at Ronan underscore cards 614. And I'm going to read his DM real quick. Okay. He said, I've been listening to your podcast over the last few weeks, and I have a similar story regarding collecting, taking an extended break and eventually returning to the hobby roughly around 2019. I've jumped around a little regarding what I've collected and started to settle back into vintage iconic cards that I've always wanted since I was a kid. Sounds familiar, right? Sounds just like my story. My question is, how do I maintain consistency when it comes to focusing on a specific card and not become distracted with possible other deals popping up? How do you go about picking a specific card you want out of a long want list? So thank you, Sam, for that great DM, man. It makes a lot of sense. I can identify big time. And that's a fair question to ask. With so many marketplaces and so many cards available, how do we not get distracted from our long term or even our short term goals? I don't know if there's a single answer for that, but I'll answer it the way that I see it as being fit. First of all, my collecting has definitely changed from a couple of years ago to today. I think the most blaring and obvious part of that is that I am now collecting higher end cards. When I first got back into the hobby, I was basically picking up a lot of low end cards. And for me, it was all about numbers and hoarding cards. I was a big collector of LeBron and Kobe. I can remember laying out all my cards on my granite countertop. I think I had about 150 LeBron cards in top loaders, and I had over 100 Kobe cards in top loaders. I thought I was the man. I can remember taking all these big pictures, standing up on a chair to get kind of an aerial view of it. So I felt really good about that. The hoarder in me felt really good. However, as I learned more in this hobby and the more I participated, the more conversations I had, the more I observed, the more I realized that I did not want to be a collector of low end cards. To me, quantity over quality is not what I wanted. However, I'm happy that was part of my beginning collecting back into the hobby, because when I jumped back in and I was buying up all those base cards or all those low end cards, I wasn't spending hundreds of dollars on a card. I was spending between $5 and $50 on a card. So even though it's more than likely I lost money, right, buying all those cards, I know people that lost a lot more because they immediately jumped into the middle and high end cards when they got back into the hobby. And I didn't take a cannonball from the diving board into the hobby a couple of years ago. Instead, I kind of stuck my foot in and slowly walked down the ladder. You know what I mean? So, as I became more educated though, and as I continue to encounter more cards and more collectors, I started to feel different emotions. One thing I realized was that some of these super high end, pumped up players and cards like Luka Doncic and Trey Young, they did not trigger any emotion in me whatsoever. Zero emotion. And I was not feeling those cards literally and figuratively. However, for me, vintage cards and iconic rookie cards are what truly triggered some cool nostalgia and strong emotions. Like I could like feel it in my gut, you know what I mean? I could feel like those kind of butterflies. Also, like I've talked about before, Mickey Mantle triggers a lot of emotions for me. He was my father's favorite player. My father passed away in 2013. And by collecting Mickey Mantle, it also kind of feels like I'm collecting a piece of my father. Also, being a diehard Yankees fan since birth, Yankees are in my blood. I live and breathe the blue pinstripes. Arguably, Mickey Mantle is the most iconic player in Yankees history. For those reasons, Mickey Mantle felt like a good fit. Also, Hulk Hogan has continued to trigger overwhelming waves of nostalgia for me. I was born and raised in Connecticut, about 20 miles from the WWF and the WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut. I grew up watching Hulk Hogan wrestle. I was the biggest Hulkamaniac I knew. To me, collecting him was a no brainer. Now that I've laid that out, vintage iconic rookies, Mickey Mantle, Hulk Hogan being the foundation of my PC, the foundation of my personal collection, I know that my foundation is my North Star, right? That's my North Star. That's the thing I'm always kind of chasing and looking for when it comes to direction. So I know that this foundation has not changed in quite some time. So there's a good chance it might not ever change. But if it does, okay. The foundations of our PC will likely only change a couple times over the course of our collecting. However, it's the other branches of our PC that I feel like will continue to change, continue to evolve, and continue to grow. I talked about recently how I just started a new side PC of John Stockton. He's an all-time great. He's an all-time leader in both assists and steals, records that will likely never be broken. Last year, I was not collecting him. Next year, I might not be collecting him. Will I? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. But I know that by growing and evolving my PC in this hobby, that's what always makes things feel fresh. It also allows me to buy some cool high-end cards at a fraction of the price. Flawless game-worn patches, on-card autos graded 9.5 or PSA 10 for under 400 bucks. That's simply outstanding. So, the question that Sam asked, right? How do we maintain consistency and stay focused on what we want? That's a great question, Sam. I think that the foundation of our PC will rarely change. But if you find you're getting distracted by other players and other cards that you are not happy with, that are taking you away from your foundation or taking you away from the direction that you want to go, check your eBay watch list. Sometimes we just need to update our eBay watch list and unwatch some things that maybe we were watching 6 months ago, but just keep on refreshing and coming up, refreshing and coming up. Maybe you were watching too many things and getting alerts on too many things. Also, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The content that we consume is so important. It's human nature to be influenced by others and by the people around us. It's also natural to be influenced by the content that we consume. Think about this in the terms of the hobby. If you're listening to content that discusses the best way to make money, the top 5 cards to buy at the moment, things like that, if you are, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would think you are putting yourself at much more risk at losing money and cheating yourself out of that kind of true collector's experience that I talked about. Those feelings, those great feelings of just nostalgia, or those great feelings of, yes, this is what I want to buy. This is what I want to hold. This card makes me happy. Not, this card only makes me happy if the price goes up. That's a tough, tough game to play. And if you are listening to content based slowly around curating your collection, then you are likely to stick to your game plan of what you want to collect and who you want to collect. I've had friends in this hobby that were super active, just as active as I am, buying up things, putting a lot of money into the hobby. And that's awesome. But I would ask them, what's your game plan? What cards are you going after? What's your 1 year plan? And they would straight up say, I don't know. I'm just having fun. I really don't have a game plan. I mean, and that's cool and all, but to me, that's a recipe for disaster. I'm a firm believer in having precise, exact goals because I need to know what it is I'm working toward. I need to know what it is I'm looking for. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I hope all that is making sense. I hope, Sam, I was able to answer some of your question for you. I kind of feel like I was. I kind of feel like I wasn't. I don't know. But I wanted to touch on one last thing. Okay. So before I wrap up, I want to give a big shout out to Curating Cardboard on Instagram for a post that he made. Um, Earlier this week. And this is what the post said. The post said, been seeing a lot of collectors post huge cards recently of their PCs that they wouldn't have been able to afford a year ago during card peaks. It's awesome to see such huge cards get into the hands of true collectors for somewhat reasonable prices. Congrats to all those who are able to obtain the grails they never thought they'd be able to get. I know it's tough for the people who deal cards as a business, but it's refreshing to know those who really collect are able to thrive somewhat. Wow. Tell me that doesn't just hit you right in the feels. So when I saw that, I screenshotted it immediately and said yes. And it just resonated with me so much. And I know I've talked about it before, but it definitely bears repeating, especially when someone puts a great post up like that. I don't think it's any coincidence that I spent the better part of the last year letting my PC continuously evolve. I was still kind of figuring out what the foundation of my PC was. I was getting cards in and then moving cards, getting cards and moving cards. Finally, now that the market has corrected and prices have come down a bit, I have found myself landing some of these iconic rookie cards that I consider to be grail cards. Also, I don't think it's any coincidence that I have not moved many of those cards in my collection. They've remained in my collection. And if you're watching me on YouTube right now, you can see the cards sitting right behind me. Just kind of propped up a little bit. And iconic cards that mean a lot to me. And for me, I'm happy with my collection looking like that. Um, I'm happy. I feel good. It makes me feel great to own these cards. And that's truly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for cards that make me happy and that I am happy to hold. And it's that old saying and that old example, as old as the hobby is, right? If all cards went to zero, would you be happy with the cards that you currently own? I'm going to repeat that. If all cards went to zero, no one would be happy if all cards went to zero, right? We all know that because we'd be losing money. But if all cards went to zero, would you be happy with the cards that you currently own? And if you would be happy with those things, then you're doing the right thing and it sounds like you're collecting the right way. Keep up the good work. And if you wouldn't be happy with those cards, then I would absolutely recommend that you start pivoting a little bit and reevaluating the direction that you're going. Look up in the sky, figure out what your North Star is, where it's located, and start heading in that direction. That's it for me, guys. Sports card therapist. Thank you very much. Um, I tell you, season two is going to be coming to an end. Season two is going to be coming to an end pretty soon. So, season one was episodes 1 through 50. Season two is going to be episodes 51 through 100. And then before you know it, season three is going to be kicking off, man. So I've been doing this podcast now just about 15 months. About 15 months, coming up on 16 months I've been doing it. So I have some fun episodes lined up for the next couple of episodes. And I just can't wait, man. Football season, fall. I live here in New England. So the fall is, I think, most people's just favorite time of the year here in New England. Just incredible, 60 degrees, breezy, kind of sunny. The leaves look incredible. The leaves change colors. So you have yellow leaves, red leaves, brown leaves, orange leaves. And when you're driving like down the road and you're just surrounded by trees, it almost feels like you're on acid. because the flashing colors just flying by you. It almost feels like in Willy Wonka with Gene Wilder when they're in that boat and and it feels like they're flying through, like, but they really just go under the bridge, but it feels like they're flying and they're kind of like tripping. That's what it feels like here in New England. And so I just love the fall, man. I just love the fall. And shout out to all the local guys, all the local people that I know, man. There's just so many local people I can name. So I won't, because you always forget people, but I just want to give a shout out to you guys and shout out to the listeners for sure. Please continue to DM me. Please continue to tell me what you like, what you don't like about the podcast, any suggestions, any questions, any of that stuff, guys, because I only get better with the interaction with you guys. You know what I mean? If the interaction settles down, then the show goes kaput. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. Take care of yourselves and your collection. Have a good one.